Tuesday, the 18th day of February 2025. Good morning and a warm welcome. This is KBC Channel 1, and just in time for KBC News Check. And many thanks indeed for joining us. And today we're setting aside politics and talk about something very, very important, that the report that was given out last year by NACADA. This is what I'm talking about. The status of drugs and substance abuse among university students in Kenya 2024. That is a live discussion that we'll be having here. And I already have a panel of experts already. But before I introduce them, allow me to just delve into exactly what the report found. And nearly half of Kenyan university students have used at least one drug or substance in their life, representing about 45.6% who acknowledge that indeed they have used some sort of a drug or substance in their lifetime. 40%, these are the numbers, 40.5% alcohol, 13.4% cigarettes, shisha 10.9%, vapes 8.5%, nicotine 4.6%, miraa 10.1%. We're talking about the miraa from Meru. Then we're talking from 9.9% mogoka, mostly from Embu County. Cannabis smoking or bang 14.9%. Cannabis edibles 11.9%. And in the past 30 days, at least 26.6% of the students had used some form of a drug or substance. And what are the figures look like in a private university? 35.1% had engaged, or as opposed to public university, which had 22.6%. And of course, we will be trying to delve into why these numbers. A preference of severe depression in private universities, mostly tied up to matters of drug abuse, more than public universities. Now, something that really struck my mind and my eyes is the list of this drug, over 20 drugs that are being used. And I was telling one of my panelists here, Professor, that during my time, it was a matter of maybe alcohol, some miraa here and there, some bang here and there. But looking at some of these, we didn't have vapes or e-cigarettes. We also didn't have nicotine pouches during my time. We also didn't have the use of medical drugs like codeine. We have also ecstasy, methamphetamine. It's here in Kenya, and ketamine. But the good thing is that the expert that I have here in studio will help us delve into that. And without much ado, allow me just to first of all introduce NACADA. From NACADA, we have Professor John Muteti, who is the Director for Research, Licensing and Standards at NACADA. And of course, he played a key role in the actualization of this report, which is a 14-page report, which we will be making all the subject of our conversation here. My name is Bentro Njue. And also we have Lensa Odinga on the sign language interpretation. Professor Muteti, good to see you. And
thank you.
Many thanks indeed for making time for us.
Thank you.
Just next to Professor Muteti, we also have, allow me to jump to the far left, where we have Nairobi County Commissioner David Wanyonyi. Karibu sana, Bwana Commissioner.
Asante sana.
Many thanks indeed for making time for us.
Karibu.
We also have a senior lecturer at the Kenyatta University, Dr. Tabitha Wangeri. Karibu sana to the program.
Thank you very much.
Next to her, we have counseling psychologist and training manager at SAPTA. We are talking about support for addiction and prevention and treatment in Africa. Karibu sana to the program.
Thank you.
Now, Bwana Muteti, perhaps to begin, in a nutshell, what exactly did you find so that you may come up with this report? Some of the numbers that we are seeing here are really disturbing.
Thank you. Now, maybe I would want to start by giving a breakdown of how we really arrived at this. Sometimes back, we did a study on the substance used in primary schools. Then after that, we saw the scenario, how it was coming out. And we asked ourselves, now, what is happening in the secondary schools? So we also went to the secondary schools and did a study on the same. And therefore, logically speaking, we thought that this situation could also be impacting on the universities. So we went to the universities, and that's how now we undertook this study of alcohol and substance use in the universities. And of course, the scenario, the situation is worrying. This was released by the Cabinet Secretary, Interior, last week on Thursday, and it is a worrying situation because when we look at the substance use, it is not as much as it is far much more than we thought it would be. Bang, for example, 10% of students smoking bang, against a national average of 2%. Meaning that if you go to the universities, the smoking of bang is like normal. The national population, if you go out there, is about 2%. You can see the situation, how bad it is. Same with alcohol, alcohol misused, students, even the female students. We thought that traditionally alcohol and these other drugs are used more by male students. But the data shows otherwise. The female students are at par, nearly at par. And that is something really to worry about. Again, we were also thinking that the public universities would have more serious problems. We found otherwise. We found the private universities actually worse off, but of course not so much, it's at par. And these study findings really gave us a lot of things to really think about in terms of policy and so on.
And we will be getting back to you because some of these drugs, I don't even know what ketamine is or how it's used. We have seen some of the drugs that we see in movies like methamphetamine. And it's so disturbing that we even have them right here in our universities. Let me jump to Bwana County Commissioner. The severity of this menace, the drug menace, and especially, basically most of the university, or many of the universities are here in Nairobi. What does the statistics look like?
They are very much worrying, as Prof is saying. And actually we could not expect what we have right now. But I believe because of the peer pressure, when these young men stay together, I can create an analogy between universities and the kind of situation we have in informal settlements, the Madares, the Korogoshos, and the Kibra. The situation is almost the same. So as you move away from situations whereby the population is dense, I mean, the situation looks good. But now, since this study has been done, I mean, it looks bad, and there's something we must do.
It's a very good thing that you brought about that thing, because in 2001 I was a student in the Technical University. Back then it was Kenya Polytechnic, and
yes.
the South B slum there, actually that's where most of the students who use drugs used to go.
Yes.
So what exactly are you doing to ensure that, because these informal settlements will still be there tomorrow or the next year, what exactly are you doing as the county commissioner to ensure that they will be there, but there will be no selling of drugs in those?
From the report, I went through it, I perused it, and actually what we are doing is the opposite, or not really the very opposite, but it's a kind of complementary of what the report is recommending. The report is recommending more of softer ways of doing it. From where I sit, we normally use the hard way. Those are frequent raids. Yes, and we've been doing that, and we have statistics since 6th of June last year. We've done a lot of work through our multi-agency security committees. That is the National Police Service, the APs, the NGAO, nowadays we call ourselves the National Government Administration Office. And we do raids, especially information-driven raids. And we've netted so many people and taken them to court.
Let's hear from one of the dons, university dons that we have. Madam Tabitha, I'm looking at some of the drugs that I'm seeing here. There are some which someone can even use and come to class. You know, if it's miraa, you will see somebody chewing. What is the prevalence away from this report, and how is it affecting students? Because there's something that caught my eye in regards to severe depression that some of the students are experiencing.
Thank you very much for that. For one, when students are using drugs, very many things are at stake. When you look at a student is a future investment of their own persons, that they should have a future of their own families that have invested in this person, and the country at large, a country that is looking for manpower, teachers, doctors, engineers, and everyone. But what happens when the students are taking drugs? All seems to be lost. That student stops going to class. That student, they stop going to class because maybe they can't, because possibly they are having a hangover if it's alcohol they took. And maybe if they are taking some of these drugs that you will never smell it. Sometimes you don't smell it. If it's miraa, you will not smell it. If it is some of this, because the truth be told, the very worrying thread today is that there are new drugs that even drug tests cannot get, and the student has come to class, they are under the influence of that drug. They will not follow up the lectures. They will not know when they have cuts. They will not know when they have exams. And what you find happening is that the parent is there waiting for the child to graduate. The graduation never comes because there's also a disconnect. You know, when we look at these students, you know, they're still teenagers, but because we have given them the ID at age 18, then nobody follows what it is that they are doing when they come to the university. And the other thing is that at the university cannot accommodate all the students. So a lot of the students are living somewhere in the neighborhood of the university, places where these drugs are sold, are used, and so on. So, and you know, sometimes depending on the course the student is taking, students who are taking very difficult courses, they are told, you cannot do engineering if you have not taken bang. You cannot do this if you have not. So the peddlers have a way of telling them, because you are doing this very difficult degree, this is the only way to do it. What they don't tell them is this: you will take this, you can transnight and study, but slowly but surely the drug is destroying your brain. And I can say this without fear of contradiction. I have taught in the university since 1988. And I have not seen the extent of substance-induced psychosis at the university like is there in the current times. Is indeed worrying and something very fearful for everyone.
Yes, and we will be getting to the numbers, because alcohol is almost being abused since our time. It has been alcohol. And I remember during our time, we had sachets, 10 shillings, 20 shillings, 25 shillings, 50 shillings. The government now wrote that and said that we will only be having from 250 milliliters, which also helped to wipe out that. But allow me to ask our counseling psychologist and training manager at SAPTA. Just like what Doc has talked about, cases of psychosis among the students are on the rise. What are you doing at Support for Addiction Prevention and Treatment in Africa?
Thank you very much, Troy, and I appreciate what NACADA has done in giving these statistics to give us an opportunity to have these conversations, because we have constantly just been saying drug use is there, but when we see the numbers is when we can actually validate the fact that our young people are getting lost into addiction. On the question of what we are doing at SAPTA, being an institution that we train people to serve as addiction counselors. Many of the treatment facilities that we currently have in our country, we may say have come out of the pioneer initiative that SAPTA has done in just capacity building and empowering people on how to manage the issue of drugs. We also have a harm reduction program where we serve over 6,000 people who inject drugs, and currently is worrying. We knew the issues of heroin was in Mombasa, but from the different centers that we have in Kawangware, Kayole, Githurai, and Pangani, we have started to see a new key population, young people starting to use drugs at an early age. So we offer both capacity building of the people who are supposed to be working with persons with substance use disorders. We also support them in terms of providing counseling services. We are an accredited outpatient treatment program. We also run recovery support programs. Currently, because we have students who come from treatment facilities and they want to understand what really happened to me, what made me to sink into addiction, and getting into an academic program with the day-to-day life challenges. We also came up with a support program. Initially, we thought we would want to have it for just the students who are in recovery, but later on, we also realized the other students, despite being adult learners, are going through life challenges, that this support group came in handy in giving them a voice and an opportunity to be able to share as well as articulate issues and challenges that they are going through. We also do sensitization in schools and churches, as well as also being able to do studies and research in relation to drug and substance use and other health-related conditions. Yes.
Prof, I'm looking at the drugs here. There are over 20, actually. Of course, alcohol issue, we've had it for a number of years. Cigarette, shisha, vape, e-cigarettes, nicotine pouches, snuff, chew, tobacco. You see the psychedelics, methamphetamine, ketamine. In this research, of course, I'm quite sure that the preference of alcohol did not quite raise the eyebrows. Which drugs are really raising eyebrows, and especially for NACADA? And what exactly are you doing for the new drugs, just like Catherine has talked about?
Thank you. You know, this study targeted the universities, the university students. Actually, we have done studies, like last year we launched a report for the general population, you see, for the general population. And so we are able to say which drug or which substance of abuse is really giving us problems, or which is being abused, you know, more than the other. Now, for the universities, the use of bang, you know, cannabis, is the one which really gave us a lot of, you know, question marks, because you can see, and as I said, the general population, when we did the study for the general population, we found that about 1.9% of the general population is using cannabis, that is bang. But for the university students, we found that 10% of the university students are using cannabis. So you can imagine 5 times. We are saying a university student is likely to use bang 5 times more than the general population. And you know, these university students are just coming to the general population. They are, you know, in a few years they're out here, and you can imagine. So that is actually something very worrying. Now, when we look at the addiction, Dr. has talked about the addiction. The level, and you know, the addiction is somebody who should really be in the rehab, quite addicted, you know, depending on the level of addiction. So we are saying that about 8-9% of students in the universities are addicted, meaning that they should be actually in the rehabs, you know, as opposed to 3-4% in the general population. So you can see the challenges. Of course, there are other new drugs coming up, the ones which are manufactured in the labs, the psychoactive, the new psychoactive substances. And these ones are also, you know, because some of them are very new, such that you cannot even detect them. You can detect them, but the means of detecting them we may not have the technology so far. So you can see now the challenges. And these students sometimes manufacture them in their labs, in the classrooms, in the labs. And therefore, that now gives us a challenge. Today, you get this new one. Tomorrow, you find that, you have a completely new one. Now, you can also get these drugs over the counter, over the chemists, the pharmacists.
Yeah,
you can just go and buy them. The codeine, for example. And you see now, it means that if you can get them, you can maybe mix them up, or you can use them, and they can give you the eye you require. So there is also that challenge, where we find that we are not stringent enough to make sure that if you want a particular drug, you must have that prescription. I think there's that laxity. And even more worrying is the fact that some of them are actually drugs which are used in animals.
Serious?
Yes, they are used to sedate animals, and maybe they would know better than me. But we have found that some of these drugs are used to sedate horses, animals and so on, and people are using them.
Where are they getting them? Methamphetamine, ketamine as well.
Maybe Dr. would want to tell us where these places are, but I know.
I'm sure from your research, the moment that you've put methamphetamine, ketamine, I'm singling this out because even my time, I think I was in the Stone Age, I've never seen them, or never seen somebody who has used them. But hold the thought kindly, because we have university students who are online from Kisumu. We're now joined by my colleague Wycliffe Okecha, who will be speaking to students from Maseno University. We also have one from Uzima University, and also a gentleman from Blue Cross Africa, an organization that sensitizes students against drug abuse. Good morning, Wycliffe. Kindly join in the conversation as well.
A very good morning to you, Troy, back in Nairobi. And like you mentioned it, I'm joined this morning by three gentlemen, two of them being students from Maseno University and not Uzima. We were the comrade from Uzima got an early engagement, so he wasn't able to make it here this morning. But then I believe I have a very able panel here that is composed of two gentlemen. One is Victor Omolo, who is the chairperson of Nyanza Comrades Union, who happens to be still a student at the Maseno University, and also Agri Omondi from Maseno University as well. And also I have Brian Magaro from Blue Cross Kenya, like you mentioned. And even as we dissect the report by Nakada this morning, I would like to engage straight away the comrades also to get to understand if this report actually paints the true picture as it is on the ground. And starting with you, Victor, even as we look into the camera and talk to our viewers this morning, this report contains quite some intriguing statistics. Tell us, I believe you've gone through that report and you've studied it keenly. Is it a reflection of the true picture on the ground?
Thank you. First of all, I appreciate my good names, as you heard, are Omolo Victor Otieno, alias K. Omolo, former president Maseno University, and I'm here to dissect on this. What I can say, it is not a true reflection. It is partially a reflection of what is going in the universities, because if you look at the samples which were taken, it is the sample size could have come from each university. We have so many universities in Kenya and not from a few. So that puts me at a 50% reflection on the ground. Yes.
All right. How do you respond to that, Agri?
Thank you very much. I'm an emeritus president communication at Egerton University. First, I'll say that the report by Nakada sampled 17 public universities and private combined, and the sample size of the US was 15,000 students. I'll say that the gaps that they were identifying and responding to didn't qualify for that report to be given to the general public. Thank you.
So in other words, In your opinion, Victor?
Yes.
The report here, I mean, the state of substance abuse in universities, is it abused as it is indicated in the report?
Yes, it is abused, I can say so, because when you look on the drug use, for instance, in the field, I represent so many universities which are residing in Nyanza. When you walk in these universities, you will find that the intended purpose, maybe for some drugs, is not what they are being used for, and people are have deviated from using these drugs to relieve stress, to enjoy themselves, and they are using it in a large amount, which of course has a lot of hazards in the health of a human being. Yes.
The report indicates that alcohol is the majorly abused, or rather the majorly used substance here. What do you think, agree, what do you think contributes to this? Is it the availability, the cheap availability of this product to comrades, or is it that comrades have a lot of time in their hands to engage in this sort of vice?
I'd say that there are those policies that were given out by the recommendations by the government. I think it was a report done by the NACADA. So there was those measures that were supposed to be taken by the government, let it be in the higher learning institution or those in the secondary setup. So what I'll say is comrades have a lot of time because they are very idle at a particular point that they are not able to maximize their time well. So because they do say that an idle mind think of more of evil, I think that is what really engaged these people to abuse these drugs. And the availability of, let's say, the help that they got, that they are not intending to have a right purpose for it, majorly contribute to them to use that money for alcohol purposes. Yes.
And you agree to that?
And I think I may disagree with Agri on this. Comrades do not actually have a lot of time. Comrades, for you to work hard until you reach a university level, that means you're a person who has been always deemed to be a working hard human being. These people have classes. These people have curriculum activities. These people are engaging in a lot of social work, community development. Some are even raising small funds to help children homes. So these people are actually busy. But you see, there are challenges because, as I was saying somewhere, when you keenly look at the students who are actually making it to university, they are working hard to either change home or make a life for themselves. That means if their purpose is to change home, these people are not well off in their backgrounds. And sometimes challenges start occurring when the expectations that they had in when they wanted to join university crashes.
Agri was trying this to help. Is it that help?
And that is where I'm coming to. When you reach a university, when you are in high school, you think that help will be a very big thing and the government will pay for you the full school fee, only to reach to find that you are needed to pay some good amount of money, let's say 40,000 plus. The help you are given is around 20-something thousand per semester, or 30,000 maybe. That cannot sustain you and pay your school fees. At the end of the day, stress comes in. You start having mental health issues, and then the only option you are seeing, because you also fear going back home to also disappoint the parents and the whole village, because now personally where I come from, I'm believed to be the light of that village. So whenever I want to go home, I must think twice. So I remain only with one option. What do I want to do with my adult mind now that my parents cannot sustain this school fee? I myself cannot sustain. The government which I wanted to depend on can also not depend on this school fee. I only have to drink some few bottles to relieve the stress. by the end of the day, it's a drug abuse. Yes.
Brian, Victor says it all boils down to the mental status of the comrade, that they undergo certain problems, certain challenges that they believe it's only the substance usage that can take them or rather relieve them of these sort of challenges. Is that true?
Yeah, first I would say this report has come in at a good time. And you know, since COVID, there was a lot of issues on mental health, both to students, parents, and different people, which we did not sort a lot. So with the students in university, just like they have explained, there are a lot of issues that they go through. But the most important thing is how do students, or how is the system helping the institution so that the students are able to make like healthy decisions when it comes to issues of alcohol and substance use. Because most of the time we don't look at it as sickness, because you look even at the old times, they feel like I'm drinking my money, or the allowance I got, or the help I've received, it's my own, so I decide what I do with it. But it's time that institutions look at that, and this report is just trying to tell all the stakeholders, from the Ministry of Education, the county governments, the national government, that something needs to be done. They should not be left alone, that is their own problem, because this is a sickness with symptoms like any other sickness that need to be solved.
Thank you, Brian. And I agree, just on that point that Brian is talking about, it also boils down to personal responsibility and individual decision. The comrades, right from the first year all through to the finalists, the fourth year, the fifth years, is it about the peer pressure? Is it about the availability of these substances? What do you think contributes to the rise in usage of substances among university students?
I'll say it goes both hand in hand, because you might find somebody from, let's say, in a rural setup, going back to the university from first year to fourth year, then the group that they conjoined with, that the group that he or she met in the campus, probably can influence, because there's those characters that they might have. Also, I'll say that the availability of drugs, because, for example, where I was from in the Egerton University setup, you find that there are a lot of clubs around the university. So basically, if one might have not tested it before at home, you might also be tempted, because you have seen people having that on Friday. So you might also be tempted, let me go and try. And you know, little steps might also make some movement. So you might be addicted in drug. Yeah.
So it is a phase of exploration?
Let me put something clear. You know,
just hold on a bit. There is a question here, I understand, from the other side in studio.
Thank you. Well, I think I would want to probably indicate that this survey was not a census. You know, a census is where you carry out a survey for the whole population. These of course, had a very good sample, a sample of 30% of the chartered universities, which is a very, very good sample size, and which by any standard is a good representation of what is happening in the universities. And the people, the lead people who carried out actually the survey, the lead researchers were the university lecturers. So each university had their own lecturers doing it. The research assistants were the students themselves. So it is what they gave us, and I think it is a good representation of the sample by any standards. And therefore, and the respondents actually were quite many. Respondents, nearly 16,000, is a good representation of a true representation, that is, of what is happening. So that is what I would want to clear, so that we know what we are talking about here.
Thank you, Prof, for clearing that. That's a third, actually, of all the university students, the sample size, 30%. And Dr. you also wanted to respond. I've heard them talk about stress remover, a lot of idle time, pressure. Is this the real situation in the universities?
Okay, thank you so very much. it is important for us to know that it is true university students experience many challenges. One very key important challenge is the issue of transition. Transiting from home, from high school, where life is guided, monitored closely, and possibly mentored closely. So on arrival at the university, nobody tells you when to wake up, when to have your meals, even when to go to class. You're on your own for the first time in your life. So sometimes you may have a little money in your pocket as a comrade, and you've never managed money. Sometimes you just use it, doing what you see other people do, and possibly alcohol or whatever else comrades are doing you will do, then the money runs out and many students go very hungry. So that issue of transition for me is a major one. The other issue that I see, and I'm saying this because I served as Director of Wellness and Rehabilitation Services at Kenyatta University, where I was actually able to see how students suffer. Being in Kenya, sometimes families think that when the person is 18 years, they are grown up. They go to the university, then the parents are like, that's a grown up. And also it's a grown up given that this person has also gone through the rites of passage as we know them in Kenya. So a man is a man will take care of himself. And in that process, students are likely to get lost in that process. And sometimes it is not very clear to students that the university has various structures that are supposed to take care of them. Like every university has a dean of students' office where they can go and maybe get listened to, get counseling. Every university has a chaplaincy. And sometimes students don't know that if you align yourself to the chaplaincy, some of the challenges may be sorted. You get identification, you get guidance, you get a way of occupying your free time. Some students don't know that when there's a sports department at the university, this is a place to go, engage in a sport, grow yourself in a sport, you grow yourself, if it's chaplaincy, spiritually, join others to do all those things that help to build a person. And I have agreed with one of the comrades that, yes, many of them are very, very, very busy, but it's not those who are very busy who will get lost into alcohol and drug abuse. It is these few who are lost somewhere, who are not finding their ground, who are not finding their standing, that every university needs to identify early. You know, those who are likely to get lost in these things, early identification, early intervention, just so that we are able to start our programs, follow our programs, and graduate in a timely manner. Yes.
Very well, thank you. That has been Daktari here responding to some of the sentiments that they're echoed by some comrades that Wycliffe Okech is currently interviewing in Kisumu. Let's get back to the live discussion in Kisumu. We will be back in a short while to continue this conversation. Wycliffe?
Well, thank you so much again. And just before we handed it back to the studio, Victor, we were talking about the explorative phase, and there have been some quite analysis from the studio in that it is a sort of transition from the lower learning institutions all now to the upper level, that is the university student, the university level. Do you agree with one of the panelists who says that it all boils down to the transition in the sense that it's now being an explorative phase for the comrades? Does that contribute to these concerns raised by the report?
I think I can agree with him. And actually, when you keenly look at it, and I really think this emanates from the high schools, because the kind of advice that the teachers, the counselors come with whenever they have a session with students in high schools is that just work hard. All the good things that you want are going to come in the university. In their minds, all the good things that they see in movies when they are in holidays is actually people drinking, enjoying with women, just people being happy. So when you finally pass your exams and you hear that you're going to a university, it is a relief. And you are no longer going to be restricted by anyone. So once you reach there, you reach when you are still innocent, but with the mindset that there is something good that I'm supposed to be enjoying here. Apart from the stress and all sorts, before the stress comes on the way, the fourth years, the people who are in higher years, who were affected earlier with such kind of mindset, start influencing the decisions that you are thinking back from high schools. And you say, okay, whatever is going on is the reality which the counselors actually were predicting. So there is nothing bad in me taking some 20 bottles of beer, taking some cannabis and all that. Yes.
Did you ever come across comrades who are influenced by their superior peers, probably by that I mean maybe first years or second years, who are influenced by maybe the fourth years into this sort of engagement?
I'll say that as a student leader, we had a lot of challenges, because when a student is admitted in the university level, he's being admitted when he's still naive. But along the way, those, let's say the roommates that these people met, probably a first year being in one same room with, let's say, a fourth year. The characters that this fourth year depicts might influence this first year. So it is a challenge that even as the report that the NACADA are giving about drug policies and the rest, I think also the university level should also have thought about it, because it is a rampant case in the university. People are being influenced, so I agree with that. Yes.
Brian, you heard the comments from the two gentlemen, Brian and Agri, and they're talking about alcohol policy, substance policy. Who is supposed to be implementing this? Is it the government, is it the university, or is it the students' bodies itself?
Yeah, one thing I'll say, first, each county has their own Alcoholic Drinks Act. So each county has their laws, and they develop these laws so that they are able to also protect young people and the people in their county. So one thing that also we need to look at, many people don't know, but they need to also face the counties. And the county government should also involve the universities and do public education, because that is what most of the acts in the county is involving. The Ministry of Education also, one thing I want to talk about, the guidelines for basic institutions. Yes. They should also up it up to the universities, because as Blue Cross Kenya, we have worked with more than 64 schools in developing with the Ministry of Education and NACADA, so that we help them with the guidelines to make their own guidelines in schools, so that the schools can be safe out of from alcohol. Wonderful. But the most important thing about the policies is that Kenya, we have the alcohol law. But the policy have not been in place for a long time. And I'm happy NACADA brought it. We had, I think last year, public participation. And one thing that also we were looking at, and they have talked about it, about the high school, that people alcohol now is 18 in Kenya.
All right. Even as we wind this up, you may want to give us your parting shot with regards to what exactly should be done to arrest this sort of situation, and you may want to restrict to the universities because that is what this report is speaking to. Yeah.
So I think that we need to work on more on the alcohol policy, and also see how even there are issues of drinking from 18 to 21, because in high school now even we have people with 20 years and they will take alcohol and say the law allows me. So that's one of the suggestions that we had put, and we hope the parliament, the Kenya parliament, will be able to look at the alcohol policy and not just be moved or be influenced by alcohol companies, but do the right thing for the young people of Kenya.
All right. Agree. Just in under 30 seconds, if you can. You've been through the first year throughout your undergraduate, and now you're pursuing your master's. So you've been at the center of the university and also the leadership. What do you think should be done exactly to arrest this sort of a situation? Because the reports, or rather the concerns raised in that particular report, are concerning.
I'll say the implementation of 10 to 10 rule, the time that students get out of the hostel and come back to the hostel should be clearly taken care of, because if you know very well you're supposed to be back to the hostel by around 10 p.m., definitely there are those cases that come after the alcohol part of it. Maybe let's say the student rates and sort of stuff. So I think implementation of strict adherence to 10 to 10 rule should be implemented. Thank you.
How do you go to this?
I think we must all start identifying that we are not dealing with people who are under 18.
Sure.
We are actually dealing with adults. And layman's challenges require layman's solutions. What is the purpose of NACADA as an agency? Because if you look at the recommendations that they gave, they solely lean on the university side. Are there policy frameworks that they are using to actually monitor time to time what is going on? Or we only have an agency that is solely doing research and leave everything to the universities? Then we should disband that agency and leave Kenya's taxpayers alone so that we only focus with the university. But I really think if high schools are able to have a very slow rate of alcohol and drug abuse, then we can try to look at the rules that were being used back then, try to implement some of these things as we also enhance issues to do with public awareness and mental health education, so that we try to tell students that as much as we are suffering, that is not a reason. Alcohol is not a reason to reduce your suffering.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Victor, Gray, and Brian, for creating time for us this morning, even as we dissect the report that was released by NACADA concerning the usage of substances and alcohol in universities. And one point that is coming out clearly from the two comrades that I have here is that management of time and also personal responsibility are two factors that need to be taken care of by both the comrades, and also the university should be on the forefront of implementing this. But again, particularly, Victor is throwing a challenge to NACADA that they shouldn't be concentrating on doing research and also releasing reports, but then again, they should also focus on carrying out sensitization on the usage of these substances and other ways to curb stress and other mental issues. Right, that has been the discussion from Kisumu, Troy, and at this point, allow me to hand it back to you in studio to continue it from the other end.
Thank you so much, Wycliffe Okech, live from Kisumu, engaging some comrades there in regards to this report that status of drugs and substance abuse among university students. This is the bridged version. It's about 100 pages of research, just as one of the comrades has talked about. But allow me to go back to my panel of experts. Here we have Nairobi County Commissioner, who is David Wanyonyi. Just next to him, we have senior lecturer at the Kenyatta University, Dr. Tabitha Wangeri. We also have counseling psychologist and training manager at SAPTA, Catherine Mudiani. And also we have Professor John Muteti, who is from NACADA. Maybe you can answer what the question that the comrades has mentioned in regards to what exactly are you doing other than knowing what exactly universities, because it's a valid point, because I'm looking at this report, university, we have more colleges and TVETs more than we have universities. So this issue could be even more rampant in other colleges and also technical university, technical TVETs.
That's true. Before I answer that, I would want to say that the NACADA has a huge mandate, and the mandate we are given as NACADA is basically largely coordination, so that we coordinate the various stakeholders, the GAOs, the people in the councillors out there, the government officials, the NGOs, people at the grassroots, the faith-based, and everybody. We do coordination. Now, research is just one of part of what we do as our mandate. We also carry out public education and advocacy. We go out there in conjunction with the county governments and other stakeholders. We carry out public education and advocacy. We also do enforcement, with the GAOs, the people, the police, the chiefs, and all those kind of people. We do enforcement. And therefore, and even areas of policy. Somebody has mentioned the policy. Now we are in the process of coming up with a national policy on alcohol and drug abuse, where we will now have guidelines on what should be happening, as far as this issue of alcohol and drug abuse is concerned. And therefore, we as an organization, as NACADA, we are doing all that, not just research. Of course, research is important because research informs policy. It informs what is supposed to be done and what is what's not supposed to be done. So that is basically what we do.
Allow me to go to Commissioner Wanyonyi. What step has Nairobi County government and also the NGAOs been in regards to arresting this situation? What exactly are you doing as the county commissioner, and are you working with other stakeholders, including NACADA, as Prof has mentioned?
Thank you very much, Troy. Just to mention is that I act as the coordinator of all national government departments within the county, just like other county commissioners in the rest of the country. And one of the main responsibilities we have is to ensure that there's security, that there's peace, and therefore with what we're discussing, the issues of alcohol and drug abuse, if they are rampant in our areas, then we have failed. We have been doing regular raids, in fact on a daily basis, because I receive like 50 to 70 reports all the way from the 11 sub-counties in Nairobi, and forward them, of course, to the PS Interior on a daily basis. What we have not also mentioned here is that there's a drug called shisha. Shisha is rampant. It should also feature prominently in this report. Yeah. Actually, shisha, 10.9%. It's a banned product. And from the 25 instructions we were given last year by the Ministry of Interior is that any outlet that we find shisha, that outlet should be closed down.
But with all due respect, Bona Commissioner, I can tell you for a fact, this weekend I was watching soccer somewhere, and that club did have shisha.
Sure, and that's
right here,
that's where I'm coming to.
CBD.
Is that there's laxity sometimes in terms of enforcement. And that's why we are very happy that this time round, last 3 weeks, we were in Kwale with the current CS Interior, where we have launched a new outfit called the National Government Administration Police Unit, NGAPU. NGAO was doing the raids on their own, without any enforcement agency. Now that NGAPU is coming into place, yes, we'll have enough enforcement to counter this situation.
And talking about the 11 sub-counties that you've mentioned, where exactly are we having issues, and especially when it comes to enforcement in Nairobi?
Sometimes it's a matter of chain of command, and because of the merger of the Kenya Police and the Administration Police before, there was that kind of disconnect. But as I've mentioned to you, currently we're expecting in the next 1 month, NGAPU will have been deployed to the GAO. so that even the chiefs and the assistant chiefs have their own security machinery to do the raids. And I believe that will help a lot.
Okay,
Sure.
we will, yeah, just 10 seconds, we need to take a break.
Shisha, we did some research on shisha a few years ago and found that shisha is laced with heroin, with cannabis, and that is the biggest problem. The shisha you see being taken there, you go and take the shisha, you get hooked. And that's how the people who are selling shisha are getting customers. Because you go there and you find that what you are taking is actually something which contains heroin. And therefore tomorrow this person becomes your customer, constant customer. That is the biggest challenge with shisha.
Of course, we will be talking about that when we come back, and how over-the-counter medication is becoming something. It's something that we need to look at, because they are being sold in pharmacies where we expect to be...
Like recently, I think last month, I had to ensure that I coordinate them, give them security, to go around the pharmacies and the chemists to ensure that they arrest those drugs that are being sold illegally. And so many people were actually arrested and taken to court.
Of course, we will be talking about the way forward, because this is quite a damning report in regards to how our young men and women are taking drugs. That just reminds me that something we're talking about, the accessibility. Yesterday I was having this conversation with my friend who is a boda rider, and he told me that his biggest customers for Bang are ladies, young ladies. Because men will go and maybe, buy a joint or two, but the ladies will send the boda guy. We will be looking at that. Let's take a quick break. We are looking at the status of drug and substance abuse among university students and indeed young men and women in our country, because this report shows that we are really, really, really playing with fire. Let's take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to News Check. We are looking at the status of drug, and especially in our universities, and my four panelists here are trying to help us to put things into perspective. And because of the interest of time, allow me to now shift focus to matters access. And this goes squarely to you, Commissioner. The 300 meters that we have talked about in terms of clubs or any person selling alcohol has to be at least 300 meters from where a learning institution is. But when it comes to universities, it's not the case. Should we be adopting that now? Because looking at these numbers, we are headed in the wrong direction.
Troy, looking at the Alcoholic Drinks Control Act 2010, the act says 300 meters from basic learning institutions.
Basic?
Yes. And basic to us means primary and secondary schools. But as we move along, because it's a challenge that's bedeviling our country, I think we should move away from just basic to other institutions, including TVET institutions, so that if we can control the access, then we'll be going the right direction. Yes, yes.
Doc, when it comes to access, in this report, some of the lecturers have also been playing a part in actualizing this. That is true, right, Professor?
Yeah, it is true. We found that a lot of...
without mentioning any names, how can we ensure that as well? You know, lecturers are just like parents for these kids. Yes. And unfortunately, they are being part of the problem as opposed to being part of the solution.
You know, it is, I want to disassociate myself as a lecturer who would access drugs to students. But indeed, where it happens is a very sad state, because the lecturer should play the role of a parent. The lecturer should play the role of a role model. The lecturer should play the role of a psychoeducator, a person who is really knowledgeable that when these young people access these substances, it is a road to destruction for them. And it is most unfortunate that sometimes we choose the quick shilling to the lives of our young people. It's a very, very unfortunate thing. But I also think that should it be established that somebody is doing that, they should face the full force of the law.
Catherine, you have been on the forefront of supporting addicts and also preventing and treatment here in Africa. I would like you to also to mention in regards to how exactly are you helping them and how can they access help? Because part of the problem is that these people who are addicts even don't even want to come out, don't even want to be known.
Thank you very much. Before I get to that, maybe it's also important for us to appreciate what these drugs essentially do, what kind of the reward that the drug provides to someone. Because whenever somebody uses any type of a drug, there's a rewarding experience that this person gets. So every time they use is to look at what is the next rewarding experience that they can get from this. So when we talk of the issue of availability, and we have seen the numbers of how many people have already developed the addiction, you will notice for the person who has progressed and become addicted, because just using does not translate to somebody becoming addicted. But for that person who has progressed and they are moderate users, that person who is stressed or is struggling with depression and the drug is helping them to cope with whatever life challenges that they are having, whether the drug is near them or far, they will find a means of getting them. So we also need to look at what are the underlying causes and more significantly boost the protective factors for this particular person. Now, in terms of what we are doing, when we get to have clients come to us, and this I speak for all psychologists. One is to get to do an assessment to understand what is your current substance use, and that helps to discern, is this someone who can still come for counseling services and continue with their education in school, or is this somebody who is supposed to be in a rehab where they are outside their current environment, which is a risk factor, and to be able to learn new behaviors. Again, as part of that assessment is to be able to look at what are those underlying causes that have led you to being there. For some of them, like we have heard, is the issue of peer pressure. That people came, they have 180 degrees of, 360 degrees of freedom, and then if they don't take responsibility for that, they are likely to get in there. So emphasizing on teaching people decision-making and problem-solving skills, capacity building on that becomes something that is important. Again, even the report identifies some of these people are coming from broken families. Those broken families which they represent, the families, they may not, as long as you've gone to the university, I've done my bit, I've given you education, now you go there and build your life. So you find that the families are hands-off. You're an adult, face situation by yourself. And they don't have anyone else to discuss the issues about their home, and even the families where they come from. They also don't want to cooperate. They're like, you've been too much trouble. You're an adult, face your life. So also being able to navigate and connect with the families to help them realize the moment someone has gotten into an addiction, like someone from Blue Cross said, this is a disease. This is somebody who is sick. You don't neglect your loved one who is sick. Again, we also saw from the report the issue of traumas. Many of us are wounded people. And unfortunately, when people have gone through traumas, especially before the age of 18 years, you will find them finding alternative ways of coping. And because drugs, by how they work, will serve as a short-term temporary relief from whatever coping mechanisms that somebody is going through, then this ends up being one of the contributing factors. So being able to provide trauma-responsive services that empower person to know that they can overcome that, to equip them with better coping skills, to equip them with a realization that whatever happened to them should not be a definition of who they are. Last year I did a study on the issue of, because we also talk about parents being neglectful, and the statistics, as Prof here was talking about, we saw from high school, now they have become higher in the university level. And a lot of it, we were saying parents need to be responsible. One of the studies that I did, we had 96 people using substances who experienced parental neglect. But that, in terms of translation to their risk of use, was lesser in comparison to people who are going through, their parents have gone through parental separation and divorce, lack of identity at home. So these are issues that, as professionals, we unearth to help the person understand, why am I doing this, as well as also teach them now how to better cope without depending on the substances and focus on other life-fulfilling activities.
All right, and ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately we are running out of time, but I'm going to give you each at least a minute to wind up in your sentiments. And also, Prof, I would like you to also touch on challenges that you are facing, because if at all we are having these statistics, if we don't check them, when we take the 2025 report, it could be more disturbing than this.
Thank you, Troy. One of the issues we are facing is the issue of the source of these drugs. And we find that the students themselves seem to be the biggest suppliers. 56% of these drugs are coming from the students themselves, meaning that we have students there who actually, it's like they are career students, you know, they are there year in, year out, they don't seem to finish their studies. And therefore we need to really find out exactly who these students are. We also talked about the TVETs. The next big study will be on the TVETs.
Yes.
The TVETs make a huge population, you know, and therefore because we have done the other, you know, sectors and you know, the other groupings, we are now going to the TVETs, because the TVETs are going to give us most of this. But basically speaking, the universities must, you know, work with the other stakeholders, including government, the private sector, you know, the other, you know, stakeholders, so that we can really, you know, help our students.
All right.
These are our children.
All right, Commissioner?
Basically, I'll echo what Prof and Doc have mentioned, especially on issues to do with the guiding and counseling in the institutions. But we have left something out that's very important, that we should start, mentoring or developing social media influencers. Most of this population we're talking about is a population that really consumes social media.
Okay.
So we should come up with a program, maybe through NACADA, that we come up with the champions in social media who can be influencing those other youth. Lastly, as a law enforcer, I'll say we will not allow breaking of the law whether in Nairobi or any other part of the country. That even though we will be talking about counseling in future, as kama serikali,
yes,
if I get you in the wrong side of you'll go the right way.
You arrest
the
right way,
and
arrest
take you to
the
court
person as well.
and be charged.
All right.
Thank you.
Doc?
Thank you so very much. I do think that for the universities, a lot can be done. First and foremost, identify students who are already using substances as on entry. When they are registering, we identify these students are using substances. And there are simple tools that can be used to identify them, so that they can be linked to support as soon as their academic career begins. The second thing is identifying students at risk. And this can be done, every class has a class rep. And I know class representatives are very good at identifying those students who have a problem. And all those students who have problems can be linked to help as soon as possible. And then the universities could actually, many times we use very punitive measures, and the universities should use the soft methods of counseling before you maybe expel a student, link them to counseling and all that.
And thank you. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but you might be wondering where we are headed to. We are hosting the PS Public Works, that is Joel Arumoyang, who is being hosted by my colleague O'Brien Kimani. But in studio, studio, I was privileged to be having the Nairobi County Commissioner David Wanyonyi on my far left. Just next to him, we have senior lecturer from the Kenyatta University, Dr. Tabitha Wangeri. Just next to her, we have a counseling psychologist and also training manager at Support for Addiction Prevention and Treatment in Africa, Catherine Mudhiani. And next to me, we have Professor John Muteti, who is the Director Research, Licensing and Standard at NACADA. We're having this conversation, and I'm quite sure you have this on your website, right? Kindly you do check so that we may also be on the same page, so that we may help our young men and women who are having issues when it comes to addiction. Indeed, many thanks. My name is Bentro Injue, and Anu Angeshi has been our sign language interpreter for this. We had Alensa Odingo earlier on, and now we are crossing over to Brian Kimani, as you can see on your set, hosting PS Public Works, Joel Arumoyang.